Grinch Stole Christmas by Dr. Seuss. Every Who down in Whoville liked Christmas a lot. But the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now please don't ask why, no one knows quite the reason. It could be that his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be perhaps that his shoes were too tight. But I think the most pertinent reason of all is that the Grinch's heart might have been 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, the heart or his shoes, the Grinch stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Whos, staring down from his cave with a sour, Grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in that town. For he knew every Who down in Whoville beneath was busy now hanging mistletoe. And they're hanging their stockings, he snarled in the snow. Tomorrow is Christmas. It's practically here. Then he growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming, I must find some way to stop Christmas. For tomorrow he knew that all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early and rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise, the noise, the noise, 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 noise. And the one thing the Grinch hated was the noise, the noise, the noise, 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 noise. And then the Whos, the young and the old, would sit down to a feast. And they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, 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 feast. And they'd feast on Who pudding, and they'd feast on roast beef, which was something the Grinch didn't like in the least. And then they'd do something he liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together with Christmas bells ringing, and then the Whos, hand in hand, would all start singing. And they'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing, 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 sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Christmas sing thing, the more the Grinch thought, stop this whole thing. But how? Then the Grinch got an idea. The Grinch got an awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. I know just what to do. The Grinch laughed in his throat, and he made a quick Santa Claus hat and coat, and he chuckled and clucked, what a great Grinchy trick. Why, with this coat and this hat, I look just like Saint Nick. All I need is a reindeer. And the Grinch looked around, but since reindeers are scarce, there were none to be found. Did that stop the Grinch? No. The Grinch simply said, if I can't find a reindeer, instead. So he called his dog Max, and he took some red thread, and he tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he loaded some bags and some sacks on a ramshackle sleigh, and he hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, giddy up, and the sleigh started down towards the Whos, who were a snooze, and their town. All their windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Whos were all dreaming sweet dreams without care when he came to the first house in the square. This is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and he climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. Then he slid down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, and so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once, for a moment or two, Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. "These stockings," he grinned, "are the first things to go." Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present: pop guns, bicycles, roller skates, drums, checkerboards, tricycles, popcorn, and plums, and he stuffed them in bags. Then the Grinch, very nimbly, stuffed all the bags, one by one. Then he slunk to the icebox, and he took the Who feast. He took the Who pudding. He took the roast feast. He cleaned out that icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch even took the last can of Who hash. Then he stuffed all the food up the chimney with glee, and now, grinned the Grinch, stuff up the tree. And the Grinch grabbed the tree, and then he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove, and he turned around fast, and he saw a small Who, Cindy Lou Who was not more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny Who daughter who'd got out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said,
"Santa Claus, why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?"
But you know, that old Grinch was so smart and so slick. He thought of a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied, "there's a light on this tree that won't light on the inside. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there and bring it back here." His fib fooled the child. Then he patted her to bed and got her a drink and sent her to bed. And when Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuffed the tree up. And the last thing he took was the log for their fire. Then he went up the chimney himself. And on their walls he left nothing but hooks and some wire. And then the one speck that he left in the house was a crumb that was too small for even a mouse. Then he went to all the other Who houses and did the same thing, leaving small crumbs too small for the other Who mouses. It was 1:15 dawn. All the Who's still abed, all the Who's still a snooze when he packed up his sled. He packed it up with the presents, their ribbons, the wrappings, the tags and the tinsel, the trimmings, the trappings. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Cruppet, he rode to the tip-top to dump it. "Pooh, pooh to the Who's," he was grinchiously humming. "They're finding out now no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a moment or two, and then all the Who's down to the will cry." "That's a noise," grinned the Grinch, "I must simply hear." So he paused, and the Grinch put a hand to his ear, and he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, and then it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. It couldn't be so. But it was merry, very. He stared down at Whoville. The Grinch popped his eyes. Then he shook. What he saw was a shocking surprise. For every who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, was singing, without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped for Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or another, it came all the same. And the Grinch, with his ice feet cold in the snow, stood puzzling and puzzling. How could it be so? It came without ribbons. It came without tags. It came without packages, boxes, or bags. And he puzzled 3 hours till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't thought of before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the minute his heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light, and he brought back the toys and the food for their feast. And the Grinch himself carved the roast beast. Merry Christmas.